Good morning, everybody. It's Kim. Hey, I'm going to be canning some chicken stock today. As you know, I bought that 10-pound bag of the leg quarters for $6.38, and I've shown you several meals that I've used it with. Now, we kind of repeat the same meals, week after week, so there's one or two left that I have to do that I want to show you. But I want to get this chicken stock canned. I am getting very concerned about food security in this country now that the Russians have invaded Ukraine. And they say our food prices, because the cost of wheat and the gas prices and all that are going to go really high. So I'm planning on doing a lot of canning in the next few days. I have an opportunity to go pick up some roast which is really expensive to me, $3.99 a pound, but that's half price of what's been on sale in my area. So I'm going to go pick up 10 or 15 pounds to put up some pint jars of roast beef, and probably pick up some more of those chicken quarters. And I might be canning some of those thighs as well. But anyway, I don't want to get into all of that. So I thought I would show you what I have going on here today as I get ready to pressure can my chicken broth. Okay, I want to show you what I have going on. And this is my pressure canner. It has some water in the bottom that is already really hot. It's not quite boiling, but it's really close. I have a separate pot here that has additional water getting ready to boil, just in case I do not get enough water in this once I put my jars in. You want it to come at least about halfway up your jars, so that you can't, in pressure canning, you don't put it above the surface of the water, but you don't want it so low that it's going to evaporate before you get your canning done. Then I have my usual canning supplies along with the vinegar ready to wipe my lids. My lids have all been washed in hot soapy water. My broth, isn't that gorgeous? I do roast my bones, and I save the onion skins for my broth, and you get this gorgeous deep rich color. And in my sink I have the jars with some really hot water at the bottom, because as you know, I believe that you should always put hot food into hot jars. So I did put a little bit of the super hot water from the pot in the bottom here. After the jars were thoroughly washed with soap and water and drained and rinsed, now I'm making sure I'm not going to shock them. So making broth, I did a video on that, and now it's just a matter of preserving it. And I put it in pint jars because I don't want to waste any of it. I use the pints a lot more because I'll make gravies and things like that, or pot pies, and I don't want to have to deal with leftovers. And it's easier to open 2 jars than it is for me to figure out what to do with the extra broth. So anyway, let's get set up and we'll get this stuff in the jars. All right, this part is pretty simple. I've taken a couple of jars out of my hot water. I'm going to use my funnel, and I'm going to fill my jars up with leaving a 1-inch headspace, which is, I measured it, the bottom of that last, or if you want to call it first ring. I did scoop off as much of the fat as I can. There will be probably some in the jars when you open it, which is fine with me because it adds some extra flavor. And I forgot to tell you, I always wash more jars than I need, because I'd rather not have to stop this process. So there's to the bottom of that rim, that ring right here. That's where 1 inch is for my jars. And I'm going to continue to fill these until I get them all done, and I'm hoping I get at least 5. I love this scoop. It's about 1 cup. It's an 8-ounce scoop, and usually 2 of them pretty much get me right where I need to be. See? Well, I'm going to go ahead and finish filling these. This is kind of a boring thing to watch. Let me set you back a little bit. Maybe you could see better. We'll do one more. It's nothing really major to do, but now remember, my jars are still warm because I don't want to shock them, which could break one of the jars when you go to put it in the super hot water. or put something super hot into it. And that's the last thing I want to do, is break any of my jars, because they are still kind of difficult to find in many areas. And look at how rich that broth is. All right, so I'm going to continue to fill my jars, and then we'll go on to the next step here. Fantastic. I got exactly what I was hoping for, which was 5 pints, and I have just a little bit left. Now you could see there's a lot of sediment in the bottom. I save that. I cook my rice in it, and it just makes it so good. It's just, don't throw it away. All it is little pieces of onions and carrots and maybe chicken. I strained it through my, my finest strainer, but those are just the little bits at the bottom. And if you look at my jars real careful, you would probably see some sediment floating around in them. That does not bother me. I don't care if it's a perfectly clear broth. I am more wanting the flavor than anything else. And I see a couple that are just a tad shy. So I'm going to add a little bit, just topping them up so that they're right at that ring, because the next step is actually very important as well, and that is to wipe your rims. Say that fast. Wipe your rims down with some vinegar in case there is any fat on your rims at all. And as you know, I strained it the best I could, but I know there's probably a little bit floating around in at least a couple of these jars. So we're just going to very carefully wipe these rings before I put the lids on, making sure that there is no fat, and vinegar is very good at cutting fat. The next step, I have my lids, which I washed. You can see they're still a little bit wet. I'm going to put each of them onto my jars. 2 different colors here from 2 different boxes. These are new. I do use new rings, especially when I'm dealing with meat. And then I have my rings, which I wash. And you want to put these on finger tight. I'm taking my fingers and I'm turning them. I do not want to put my wrist into it and give it a huge spin. Just taking my finger tight, it's called. And these are hot, so you got to be careful. And I put them on finger tight. My next step is using my jar lifters and putting them into my pan with the hot water. And this is where I will know whether I need to adjust the amount of water I have in here. You want to go about halfway up the side, at least I do. I like to go halfway up the sides of the jars. More so on meat because it pressure cans much longer, and that's just about right. I might add just a cup or 2 of, oh, I hope you got a good view of that. Sorry about that. I got all the jars in there. The water level is pretty decent. I think I'm going to add just a cup or 2 to bring it about halfway up the jars. Now I'm going to put the lid on it, and we're going to have to vent it for 10 full minutes. Once the steam is at a full steam, you have to let it go for 10 minutes, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, I tried to get a view. Can you see how that is venting? A steady stream coming up out of this spout here. I had let this go for 10 full minutes. It has to be steady like this, not where it's, starts and stops. Wait till it gets to this point. It takes all of the vacuum out of your canner. Now, my area, I use 10 pounds of pressure, so I'm going to put my little pressure weight on, and I'm going to wait for that to start jiggling. Anybody who does pressure canning is absolutely in love with this sound. You can see it's a steady, gentle rocking. It kind of wiggles back and forth, and it took me a little bit to get my heat adjusted just right, because you want that to continuously spin, or jiggle, I should say. And once it's continuous, then you start your timer. It's 20 minutes for pints of the chicken stock, or 25 for quarts. If that stops any time during that 20 minutes or so, then you have to start all over again. And as you can hear, my timer just went off. So now I get to turn off the heat. And I'm going to let this come down by itself to normal pressure, okay? Do not run cold water over the canner. Don't set it out in the snow. Don't lift. Definitely don't lift that, because you will have steam shooting all over the place and you could burn yourself. I'm going to wait 45 minutes or so, and then I rock that little jiggler on the top. See, it's finally quit. I'll rock it just slightly, and if it steams, I just let it be for a while. You could hear, maybe, it's boiling like crazy in there. It's still under immense pressure, okay? So please, never, ever bring it down from normal pressure too fast, because this is part of the canning process. This is very important to get those seals just right. Right, it's been 35 minutes or so. I'm just going to, remember, I don't take it off. I'm going to see if the pressure's gone. Let's see if we hear any hissing. There's hissing. It means it's still under pressure. It means I need to wait just a little bit longer. I waited another 15 minutes. Let's see how it does. That's it. All right, you don't hear any hissing, right? So now I can open up this lid. I don't know if I can do it one-handed, though. Oh, maybe I can. We'll see how. Let me get this lid off, and I'll show you what it looks like. All right, our jars are done. Look at how much water you lose. That's why I put it halfway up. If I had left it there, I probably could have run out of water. Here is my gorgeous broth. And I have 5. They look like they may have already sealed, which is wonderful. Oh, that's the best sound on the planet. Pop goes the weasel. Boop, boop, boop. Here we go. All right. So now I'm going to let these be for until they're completely cool. Look at, see, it's still bubbling. See it? That's why you do not remove your pressure, because you could actually cause all that liquid to start siphoning out if you remove the pressure too fast. And this has been sitting almost an hour, remember? It's like 50 minutes or so, and look at it, it's still bubbling like crazy. Now I'm going to let these things completely cool. Then I take the rings off. I wash the jars really well and label them, of course, and put them in my pantry. So anyway, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the box below. And you guys have a wonderful day. And I know I have at least 5 good meals in front of me here.